Hey everyone, welcome. Just we'll give it a few more minutes. We'll wait for some people to show up, and we'll get started shortly. Happy to see you guys here. Hey everyone, welcome. It's just about 7:01. We're going to give it just another minute in case people are running late from work. So happy to have you guys here and on time. I really appreciate that. While we wait for other people to join, just head on over to the chat box, maybe say hi, let me know what town you're from, where you're looking to buy a home, what's bringing you here tonight, just so I can start to get to know you. And yeah, we'll give it about 30 more seconds and we'll get started. All right, guys, welcome everyone. I am the Realtor Evan, and I am eager to share with all of you some of the best practical, tactical, nitty-gritty bits of advice I can give you about buying a home in Los Angeles in 2025. I'm excited to have you guys all here tonight, and I really hope that it helps, at the very least, at least one of you, but hopefully it helps all of you. And I'm going to do my best to uh, give you all this information as well as try to get to some questions at the end and do it all in less than an hour. And one thing also I want to let you know, I know some of you have probably done some webinars in the past. I want to let all of you know from the start that I'm not here tonight to try to sell you anything. I'm not going to be selling anything tonight. I'm going to be offering things to you and offering suggestions, solutions, services, but tips, informations, resources, any ways for you guys to save, make money, get some help. But there is no selling tonight at all. So, you don't have to worry about that. Before we dive into the material, I'd just like to always get a sense of the room and try to understand the audience tonight. I know we sort of have a light crowd tonight. Last time we had like 30, 40 people. Tonight is fewer people, but that's great because it allows us to get to know each other a little bit better and maybe answer more of your questions. So before we dive into the material, if you had to pick an emotion about how you're feeling about buying a home right now, what would it be? Um, are you concerned? Are you stressed out, intimidated, anxious, uncertain? Is there any of those feelings that sort of stand out to you? And if so, why don't you write it in the chat box if you're not ashamed or embarrassed? There's nothing to be embarrassed by to have any of these feelings. As a matter of fact, when I first bought my house, the first home, I wasn't a realtor yet, and I remember exactly how emotional and stressful and uncertain I felt at that time. And so if you've been stressing out about this thing the whole time and you're just getting started, I totally understand where you're at. And that's the goal here tonight, is to hopefully get you the best night's sleep that you've had in a while. And after all of this is over, I really want for all of you to just go home tonight and, just got this, like type of feeling where it's we got this, it's all going to be good and we know what we got to do. So how am I going to do that? How am I going to try to get you this sense of calm? Well, in a second, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and why I might be able to help you as a realtor. And then I'm going to walk you through 5 mistakes most people have made that I have seen and what maybe you want to try to avoid so that you don't go through the same pitfalls that they've gone through or I've seen people go through. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what it's like to buy a home and just simplified in 5 simple steps, and also what you can expect your approximate costs to be through each of those 5 steps, through each of those 5 phases of the home buying process. And throughout it all, I'm going to give you a lot of different resources. Some of them you may have heard of, some of them you may have never heard of, that you can use throughout your journey, and also try to share some lessons and opportunities that I've learned throughout the years on how to make money or even save money so that you can have the most money in your pocket at the end of this journey. And at the end of this session tonight, we're going to do a quick Q&A session. We'll take as much time as we can to answer all the questions as we can, and or as you have. And that's what we're going to do tonight. And I promise all of you that you're not only going to find ways of saving and making maybe tens of thousands of dollars through the lessons that we are going to go through tonight, but if you stay until the end, I am actually going to give each and every single one of you $1,000 worth of goodies just for saying thank you, to help you go towards the purchase of your home, as a thank you for joining us. So not only will you hopefully be able to save a lot of money, but when we're all done with our 60 minutes, you'll make some money, and I expect you to feel like the most confident, most informed home buyer in all of Los Angeles, maybe even all of California. By the way, if you haven't already and you would like to, please feel free to use the chat feature tonight, certainly right now, but throughout this time. It's a very small group right now, so hopefully it stays that way and we can get to know each other throughout. And let everybody know where you're from. Say hi. See, a couple of you have already said hi, and Phoebe in the South Bay, that's where I am. That's great. And an iPhone from Carson. Oh, is that Mimi? Okay, from Carson, that's great. So right here as well. And yeah, if you guys want to jump in and say where you are from, where you're looking to buy a house, and when you like something that you hear, just hit that thumbs up button so I know that it's resonating with you. Even if you stay muted this whole time, which you will until the end and we open up for Q&A. I really want this to be as interactive as possible. And I know that everybody is, probably coming home from a long day of work. So you might have the kids to feed or whatever it might be. So feel free to keep the camera off if that's more comfortable for you. Totally fine. And, if you do have questions throughout, just go ahead and ask it in the chat and we'll go through the chat. So at the end, to answer those questions to when we get to our Q&A. And we'll stack up those questions and go through all of them. Okay, so one quick last thing before we dive in is the disclaimer, right? So unfortunately, lawyers, they get me to tell you all of this stuff, but I am not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lender or broker, and everything that I say here tonight is simply based on my experience that I am passing on to you for informational purposes only. And everyone's situation is different, right? The purpose here tonight is to help you mitigate risk and feel as comfortable and as confident throughout the journey as possible, but I'm not any of those things. And I want to be very clear. So if you have a legal question, it's best to speak to a lawyer, or a tax question, speak to your CPA or accountant. And also a lender question, I'll try to answer some of them, but I like to stay in my lane as a realtor. And it's always best to speak to the people who are in that particular lane. So if I'm not any of these things, who am I? Well, like I said, my name is Evan Rosenblum, and as I told you before, my appropriate stage name is the Realtor Evan. And in my heart of hearts, I really think to myself as being a buyer's agent. I've certainly sold some homes and acted as a listing agent for sellers, which many would say is the easier or more lucrative side of the business. But I love helping buyers, and I became an agent because I love real estate and I love helping people. Not going to go into my entire history, but that's really why I got into being a realtor. And yeah, it's great to help buyers and sellers, certainly in any situation. But honestly, in my experience, there is nothing more enjoyable to me in this business than giving someone the keys when they buy their first home. That's really the highlight of my career every single time. And I've bought and sold my own investment properties. I've had the joy of helping hundreds of people going from renter to being an owner, and that is truly unmatched. And the reason that's what I think is the reason that this feeling of joy drives me so much is because I found out what my why is, right? And you might have heard about finding your big why or your reasoning, right? And your reason for what you do. And you may have heard of this concept before, but I firmly believe that everyone should find their why and what they're aiming to accomplish, why they're aiming to accomplish their goals. And if you haven't figured out what your why is yet, that's okay. It's not too late, but I do recommend you try to. And there are a lot of books and YouTube videos on how to help you realize what yours is. And for me, I can honestly say it's helped me tremendously. My why that I've realized is I really like to help people, in as many places or as ways as possible. And my big why, as you probably guessed it, that's my family right there, my lovely wife, Wani, and my beautiful baby boy, Thor. Tiny little dog, but we call him Thor, and he's not as ferocious as he once was. But that is my family, and that's my big why, right? The things that I get up for every single day is to help my family. And, to me, they're the most beautiful creatures in the world, and I want to help them, but I also really like helping as many people as possible and getting to know people and just see how I can help them. And when I discovered this a few years ago, I had moved from New York and I moved out to California. It's about 9 years. I love it out here, but I was born and raised, lived in New York for 35 years. I went to school there. I got a master's degree from NYU. I had a marketing career spanning 2 decades. But after all that time, helping huge billion-dollar corporations sell their terrible products and not really helping anyone, I realized I was feeling miserable and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And when I got to California and to LA more specifically, I realized what was making me empty and, found this why. And I've done some real estate investing. Um, and now I just absolutely love helping people in real estate because I love the real estate game too. So when I got my license, it all started clicking for me. And I really not only have my family to help, but all of the clients that I work with, I treat them like they're part of my family too, because I really want the best for every single one of my clients. And I want them to find a home that they truly love. And I hope that you are working with whomever you're working that feels the same way about you. Over the years, I've had a lot of success putting young people, old people, veterans, single adults, young families who are just starting out, or even those expecting to start families into the first home that they own. And when we close on these homes, most of them are so happy that they're literally jumping up and down. And some of them even write 5-star reviews for me to tell everybody about it afterwards. And they're sort of here, but kind of small to read. But I promise you they're there. You can find them on Zillow, on Google, wherever they are. But they're 5-star reviews because it becomes like a family. And I want to help them and they want to help me. And it goes around and around. And I hope that I can either help you or help you find somebody who can do the same for you. Now, raise your hands, figuratively speaking here, if you like the idea of leaving tens or even thousands of dollars on the table. Is there anybody who really likes to lose money or leave money on the table? Okay, no hands are going up because I didn't expect that. I don't think anybody really wants to lose money, but I'm sure we all like to save money, right? Or even better, make money. So, if you're with me on that, you can raise your hands, but I'm sure I have your consensus and you agree with me on that one, that saving money or making money is much better than losing money. So I want to start tonight by helping you avoid these common mistakes and possibly save or even make tens of thousands of dollars while you are on your journey of buying your first home. And the first way we do that is avoiding mistake number one, which typically means that the buyers do the right things, but in the wrong order. So what do I mean by that? Tell me if any of these sound familiar or that you might be guilty even of any of these. You've stalked Zillow for years without taking any action. You've disqualified yourself from homes or neighborhoods that may actually have been attainable. You got curious, so you called a few for sale signs, but never went any further. You walked into a new build model, maybe even one or two or three of them, but again, never went any further than that. You visited a few open houses, and again, nothing happened from that. You finally got tired and just maybe you walked into a builder or an open house and you even got into a contract that was turned out to be a terrible deal. Hopefully you got out of it if that was the case. But worst of all, if any of this has happened to any of you that you've gotten so tired and fed up that you've just given up, I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody, certainly nobody that's here tonight. And my personal observation is that more than 90% of first-time home buyers that have come to me before working with me have gone through a lot of these phases. And they either get stuck or they just wind up in a wrong situation. And I don't want that happening to them, to you, or anybody. So we're going to show you tonight the correct order before we are done. And what I have learned in all of my years is that the reason for that whole list and many other mistakes is that the buyers simply don't have the direction that they need. And because they don't have the direction that they need, they end up messing something up, for lack of better words. And I know that there may be some of you tonight, even after this whole webinar, that might not be truly ready to get started, and you're going to continue to fly solo on your own, and that's okay. And you might still be in the information gathering stage. Maybe it's something else. There's something else holding you back. And whatever it is, that's okay. And I get it. I've been there. And there's absolutely no pressure for anybody to get started if you're not ready. There will also be those of you that will hear exactly what they need to hear tonight. Maybe have already heard it before they even got here and are ready to make moves right now. So in either case, whether you have an agent or not, if you need a source of expert information in either of those situations, I want to make sure that you have something before you leave here tonight. So regardless of which category you fall into, I'm going to give you a couple of resources. Now, for those of you who are already maybe ready to go through and already liking what they hear and think that I might be able to help you after this webinar, or just want to get, a sounding bites for more personal questions, I'm happy to do that too. There's no obligations for you to make schedule a free, no obligation call with me whatsoever. We can explore the possibility of working together. I can answer questions for you. I can answer questions for your cousin, whatever it might be. If I can help in any way, this is the best way to get in touch with me after tonight. therealtorevan.com/book. Simple as possible. I put that in the chat right now. You can click on it right now and click on that now or tonight, whenever it is, and book that appointment that's for you. And again, for those that aren't quite ready for that phase yet, for those who are still wanting to go at it on their own, I actually just recently created and launched a course specifically designed just for you that is full of detailed information, other information, not that we're going to talk about here tonight, but a course that outlines all of the steps that it takes to buy a home and pretty much all of the information plus more, but all of the information that I teach every single one of my clients when I'm working with them. So for those people that sign up here tonight, you're going to get lifetime free access to this course. I told you I'm not selling you anything here tonight. This is just resources for your benefit. So if you don't want to sign up for a call with me, that's fine. You have it, the link. If you want to change it to or do it a different time, that's cool, no problem. And I either which way, I highly recommend you sign up for this. I don't know of any other course that teaches at this level of detail for first time or even second or third time homebuyers. So therealtorevan.com/course. Just click on that. There's a big picture. It'll take you right to the school website and to our page. Sign up. You sign up tonight. It will be completely free for life. So no worries about that. Now, moving on to mistake number 2. And again, both of those links are in the chat box if you want to copy them down. Mistake number 2, buyers get intimidated by the numbers. There's a lot going on in real estate, and especially once you start buying a home, it's a lot you might as well be back in college because there's so much being thrown at you. I'm going to try to get you through some of the basics right now. And this is really the pull out your pen and paper time because it's note-taking time. The truth is that average home buyers don't really dig deep enough into the numbers. But I know that because you're here, you're not the average, right? You're above average, and we're not going to get intimidated by these numbers. In fact, we're going to go through some of them right now because knowing the numbers is how we know how to avoid things and how to save money and maybe even walk away with some money in our pockets. So, how many of you have heard of the term down payment? Can I get some hand raises? If anybody's still listening or on their phone or near their computer. All right, Raymond, F. Leola, Victoria, great, awesome. We have probably all heard down payment, right? But how about closing costs? Has anybody heard the term closing costs? Because these are entirely separate, different things. These are not one and the same. Your down payment is the amount that goes towards the equity of your home, okay? So if the bank is giving you money to help you purchase the home, normally they're going to want you to throw some skin in the game, right? They're going to want you to help to pay for some of that home's costs. Sometimes the down payment can be as low as 3%. Sometimes it's 5%. The national average is actually closer to 10%. That 10% of the house, right? The purchase price. So if it's a $500,000 house, 10% would be $50,000 as your down payment. Most people think that you have to have 20% to put down, but it's really a misnomer. It's only 20% if you need to or want to avoid paying what's called private mortgage insurance. If you put down less than 20%, the bank is going to require that you pay this extra insurance fee, and it'll be tacked on to your monthly mortgage statement. Probably a couple $100 in that case. But if all you have right now is 3%, and it makes sense, these numbers make sense to do it, even with that private mortgage insurance, you're building wealth, you're building your net worth, and you're building equity by buying a home. So it sometimes is much better to do that, even though you're having this additional cost, than paying rent and giving your money to your landlord for them to pay their mortgage off, right? So how much you have to put down mostly will depend on your loan product, what your own personal finances will allow. This is something that you'll discuss specifically with your lender, right? And separate from that down payment are your closing costs. And these are just the costs of simply doing business, right? This is the cost of buying a home. It doesn't go towards your $500,000 house purchase. It goes to just paying the costs of things that cost money to buy a house. And it's imperative, in my mind, that you know what you have to pay for these closing costs, and so that you know that you have enough cash on hand to actually buy the home that you want. If all you thought was that you needed 3% to put your down payment, well, you might not be able to buy that home because you probably still need another 2%, 2 to 3% possibly for closing costs. Closing costs are made up of a lot of different things. And again, they normally come out to about 2 to 3% of your purchase price. So if 3% was your down payment for a $500,000 house, just easy numbers, that's $15,000 as opposed to the $50,000 for 10%, right? So you can do the 3% number at $15,000, or you can also put down more if you wanted to, but you have to account for this extra 2 to 3%, which could be another $10,000 to $15,000. So if, again, your down payment, the minimum is 3%, and your minimum closing costs are 2%, then you are going to need a minimum of 5% to buy a house. End of story, right? No matter what that purchase price is, you are probably going to need a minimum of 5% to buy that house. So if it's $500,000, you're going to need $25,000. If it's $700,000, you're going to need $35,000. If it's $1 million, you're going to need $50,000 at a minimum to buy a house, right? So what are these closing costs? What's costing you another 10 to 15 to whatever amount this is, 2 to 3% of the purchase price? Well, I've broken them down into 3 different buckets. Bucket A are fees from the title insurance, right? The title company that protects you once you buy the home, so that nobody can come and take that home from you. So you have to pay for that. You have to pay lender's fees. Maybe you have rate buy downs. Maybe you are buying an HOA and you have HOA fees, right? Then you have bucket B. Bucket B could be dependent on your loan product. So if you're using a VA loan, one of the best loans that are out there because you're a veteran, thank you very much for your service. If you are, really appreciate that. Work with a lot of veterans in my career. Truly a great thing. But you have to pay one-time funding fees for the VA loan. You might not have anything to put down. You might not have a down payment. They fund it 100% if you wanted it to. Or upfront mortgage insurance for FHA loans, another great product, but there are extra fees. And then bucket C, you have taxes, you have insurance, you have the appraisal, you have the inspection, all of these things that you've got to take care of in order for you to buy the house. So there are others that are not listed here, and you'll get a full representation of what your specific loan costs will be. When you speak to your lender, you get your loan estimate, and certainly when you get into contract, it'll be even more precise. But the point here is that a lot of fees need to be paid throughout this transaction, and very often the case, like in column C, the appraisals and inspections are paid for up front. They're not paid for at the end, so you need to have some money right away. But a total, they're typically coming out to somewhere between 2 and 3% of the purchase price. And also, a lot depends on who your lender is, what type of loan product you have, where you're buying, right? Taxes, right? Where you're buying. And also insurance is another big thing about where you're buying. So on and on and on. We can't get into the specifics for every single one here, but the idea here is it should give you a general idea of what your closing costs would look like. So for all of my clients, I try to make sure that all of these costs are as absolutely low as possible. And we want to reduce these costs as much as possible, because the more money you have saved up, the more money you have to pay for other things, whether it be the mortgage, other bills, maybe even future repairs. And even more strugglingly or frustratingly, as of this year, there is also the possibility of a fourth box here. And in 2025, you might have box D on your settlement statement. This is across the nation, and it's the result of industry-wide changes that were implemented in August of last year. Now, it is now the responsibility of the buyer to make sure that their buyer's agent gets paid. Now, the truth is, it really always was this way, okay? But because of one change, it made it more of a factor. So before this year, buyers were still responsible for their agent's fees, but sellers were typically paying for that fee. No longer, though, are sellers required to offer to pay for your agent's commissions. They used to advertise it on the MLS, so us as agents would know before we even showed a house, hey, this seller's willing to pay my entire commission, or this seller's willing to pay a portion of it. Well, the change that took place is that they are not even allowed to advertise any of these concessions at all on the MLS. So it is still possible that sellers will be paying for it, but because of these changes, there are some sellers that are no longer willing to pay for it. And certainly it takes more of an effort for agents to now figure out which homes will have sellers who will help pay for those commissions and offset the cost for you. Now, depending on what your agent's fees are, typically mine is 2.5%. If you had a 2% closing cost and now you have a 2.5%, you're already up to nearly 5% in closing costs, let alone your down payment, right? So we want to always make sure that, you get rid of this box, so to speak. And as far as I'm concerned, I have never, this change went in August of last year, and realistically, ever since I started practicing, regardless of the change or not, I have never had a client pay me their own buyer agent commission. And I don't intend to have that happen in the future. So, you just have to be careful, and you just have to be sure that you know who you're working with and how it's going to work out. It could mean some missed opportunities. You might like a house and the seller's not willing to pay for it and you don't have the money for it. Well, then you might not be able to put an offer on that one. Or you might find the perfect house and the seller's willing to pay for it and you'll be all good. So that's one option. There's also the other option that you don't have an agent at all because you don't want to even worry about this. And we'll talk a little bit more about representing yourself. But I always think that again, going back to mistake number one, you need to have some sense of direction. You need to know what you're doing. And this, as sort of simple as it is, it does become complicated to buy a house. And I don't want anybody, so to speak, getting, messed over because they didn't have the proper guidance. So just keep an eye on this. Talk to your realtor about keeping the costs to the minimum. And that's what you really want to take away from this mistake. Okay. Okay. Mistake number 3. Most buyers that I've seen don't even try to go and look for first-time homebuyer programs. Now, I'm assuming that the down payment would, if your down payment went away, it would be great for everybody here, right? So if that's one of the things keeping you up at night about your down payment, let alone your closing costs, let's, go on to this, because the reality is that 90% of more of the people who apply for these programs may not actually qualify for them. But in the off chance that you do qualify for, we are going to talk about the simplest way for you to possibly keep tens of thousands of dollars in your pocket after you buy a house after closing. Okay, there are many first-timer programs in almost every area, certainly here in LA. And in fact, not all of them are really first-time buyer programs. They're really based on your own situations. They may be based on a specific location of the home. They may be based on other various factors of who is eligible, like the type of job that you have. Some of them even offer 100% financing. These programs can often be referred to as not just first-time homebuyer programs, but down payment assistance programs, or DPAs. So if you've ever heard of down payment assistance programs, first-time homebuyer programs, you want to look into that. Again, it's not a given, but it's worth looking into. It's only some time, and it could save you a lot of money. Some of them are loans that you have to pay back. Some of them are grants where they actually just give you the money. Some of them are won in a lottery. Some of them are federal tax credits. Others are equity sharing, where they give you the money, and when you sell the house, they get their cut. So, some exist simply because they had to combat the bad behavior of lenders, and they're trying to help people out because of that. So again, in some cases, you might even be eligible for more than one DPA, but it's worth checking it out. And there are some hard truths about it, right? Even though they're great, we have to talk about your bank, because most people's first instinct is to go to the bank where they have their checking or savings account and apply for a mortgage there, which perfectly makes sense, sure. And in many cases, that's a good move. The problem with the big banks is that they like to pretend that these DPA programs do not exist. And I don't know the reasons why that happens. It's probably because they tend to lose some money on them, I would assume, but I don't know for a fact, so don't quote me. But they do tend to ignore them. And that could be a problem if you're working with a big bank. They'll probably tell you not to even bother. Additionally, and it's, by the way, I just should say, it's not all big banks and it's not all lenders at all big banks. So you could have a good one, but as a general rule of thumb, we also with DPAs have a problem with sellers, because banks don't typically give favorable terms to sellers, right? Usually banks require 30 or 45-day escrow periods, whereas a seller often wants to get out of there as soon as possible. They want a 15, 20, 25-day close. So the sellers often don't want to see a letter from a big bank. But even more than that, sellers' agents, and therefore their customers, their clients, their sellers, don't like to see DPAs on that either. So if you have your down payment coming from a first-time homebuyer program, the sellers might look past you because of that mere fact. And the reason is again, stupidly, but because in the past, there had been buyers who tried to get qualified simply by using a DPA to buy that home. And now the DPAs have a negative connotation because those buyers weren't really qualified. And so therefore people think anybody using a DPA is not qualified. And that's just couldn't be further from the truth. Right? People using DPAs are typically smart people who are more than qualified and trying to save money smartly. So we have to try to avoid that happening at all when it comes to presenting your offer with a DPA. And if, they're faced head to head with a DPA offer and a non-DPA offer, a lot of them will just turn to the non-DPA offer so that they don't risk falling out of escrow and going with a qualified buyer. And this is one of the reasons why you want to have a good agent, good representation, good direction, so that when you do have the DPA, it gets framed properly and seller agents don't disqualify you. They see you as smart. And most importantly, and this might be the toughest pill to swallow, DPAs shouldn't be anything that someone counts on for getting a home. And it's for these particular reasons that I'm saying that, as well as some others. Because as you can see, they are, first of all, given by chance, right? That not everybody's going to get them, which makes it, it's going to be hard to get it, but we want to try. And if you have them, they will save you a ton of money, but always start the buying process when you are comfortable buying it with the money that you have. If we can get the DPA, great. It's a way of saving things, but you might find the perfect house and the seller doesn't want to accept it at first because of the DPA. And then we might have to circle around to using it after we've gotten the offer accepted, right? Like there's ways of working all of those things out. And that's why we want to have the money to be able to purchase the home on our own and show that to the seller, even though we're not probably going to use the DPA. So you probably want to have 3 to 6 months worth of average spending saved up. That's the quotable suggestion from all the gurus. In addition to all of your costs that you're going to need for your down payment and closing costs, and the money to maybe pay your first mortgage bill after you're buying. And a lot of these questions are best discussed through your own lender discussing your own personal finances. So I don't want to get too thick into the weeds of this. But if you are looking for a first-time home buyer program, there are ways of finding it. First of all, you can do a Google search for DPAs or first-time home buyer programs near you. That's certainly a good option, but you'll have to dig through the weeds on a lot of them, not only to find ones that fit you, but also ones that your lender will work with. You can also go onto this website. It's dpa1.freddiemac.com. Freddie Mac is one of the major conventional lenders in the country. And this is a list of the DPAs that Freddie Mac works with. So you probably have a good chance of finding a lender that'll work with you for one of these DPAs. Now you just got to find the DPA that works for you or that you can get approved for. And the last thing, that the best way, in my experience, to find the DPA that you're actually going to work with for yourself, help you get approved for it, and also that they will work with you, is to go through the lender directly. And if you ask the lender or tell them that you're interested in searching for a DPA, then that might be the easiest route for you of all. And just to help you out as another resource, I want to introduce you to Arash. Arash Gezersey, he's a fantastic loan officer. I've worked with him many, many times. He actually funded my own loan for my own house. So I know he's a terrific loan officer, and certainly he's just like me. So if you have any questions, you just want to talk to somebody about your financial situation or about loan products or about DPAs, whatever it might be, I know Arash is that type of guy who will sit down just like me and talk to you about it and go through whatever questions you might have. He's been around forever. It's 25 years he's been working. He's closed more than 100 loans in the last 2 years, probably more than that. And, he's a fantastic person and very, very bright. So if you want to contact Arash tonight or any other time, really, go to therealtorevan.com/Arash. We're going to throw that in the chat right now, and you can fill out a quick form. Fill out the form. Arash will get back to you. But if you really want to hurry, there's a link below that, and you can make an appointment on Arash's calendar in addition to filling out the form or instead of filling out the form. But either which way, head on over to therealtorevan.com/Arash, and he will help you out with the financing piece of this puzzle. Now, mistake number 4, we're moving right along. We got a little bit of time left, so I'm going to start rushing through it. And this is one of the longer sections, but mistake number 4 is after the buyers don't have the right information, then they start getting misdirected. And we do not want to get misdirection because that is your worst enemy in this situation. Now, the first thing, and I can't say this enough, and I say it to every client, and it's probably the most crucial piece of advice I can give when you are shopping online, and especially in a seller's market like we've been in for the last several years, is that every buyer is going to have to compromise on various aspects when they're buying a home, no matter what their budget is, right? Like even if you have $100 million, you're going to have to compromise on having only 15 bathrooms instead of 20 or one helipad instead of two. I mean, there's going to be something that you're going to have to compromise on no matter what your budget is. The most important thing you can do for yourself when searching online is before you start compromising on things, is to focus on facts and not features. So what do I mean by that? Most buyers tend to focus on the features and, give me the thumbs up if this is you or you've done this in the past, is you go on Zillow and you start scrolling through pictures. And if you don't see what you like in the pictures, you go to the next property. Right? A lot of buyers tend to just look at the features, how the kitchen countertops, how, they don't look at the square footage of the house though. They might worry about the type of flooring, but they don't worry that the floors are slanted or sloped. They focus on the house, but they don't look at the neighbors, the neighborhood. So the point here is that cosmetics, the features, the flooring, the house itself even, all of these things are probably things that you can change at some point down the road once you've bought the house. But the facts are the things that are not going to change ever and that you have no control over. A lot of time you're buying a condo, you have no control over adding square footage. And if your lot isn't big enough when you buy a house, you might not even have the capacity to add square footage. You might not be able to, you're certainly probably not going to be able to change your neighborhood and your neighbors for that matter, or how busy the street is. And so when I say focus on the facts and not the features, I mean to focus on the things that you cannot change more than focusing on the things that you can change. Sure, we all want the perfect house and we don't have to do a thing to it when we move in, but trust me when I tell you, you're better off finding a house that you can make into the perfect home than finding the perfect home that will never be perfect because it's in a terrible neighborhood or on a busy street or whatever the reason is. So focus on facts and not features, because the number one reason that I ever get calls from clients who bought a house just the last year using another realtor and now they want to sell is because of one of these reasons, right? They focused on the features and they didn't focus on the facts. So that's part one of this chapter. Now, who doesn't trust their friends and family? Of course, right? Give me a thumbs up if we probably love our friends and family. That's why they're in our lives. Family, we don't always get to choose, but certainly they can hopefully be a point of support. However, we have to be honest when it comes to friends and family, because if they weren't a heart surgeon, would you let them do open heart surgery on you if you were having a heart attack? Or if you were on trial for your life, would you let them represent you? Or would you hire a lawyer, right? Would you go to a doctor for the heart surgery? Family and friends are great, and it's not unreasonable to ask their opinion. And actually, I honestly encourage you speaking to friends and family about your decision making and get their take on it. But just because somebody has bought a house one time doesn't make them an expert. And certainly if they've never done it, they won't even understand it. So unless somebody is working in the real estate industry full-time or is vastly experienced in buying homes, it's probably best to get your advice from a real estate professional that knows exactly what's going on in the market and in your market. Otherwise, you're talking to your aunt from Tennessee. That's not the same as what's going on here in LA. And you can often get misguided or just flat out wrong information. And again, get their opinions, take it with a grain of salt, get information, hear all about it. And what you hear from your friends and family, go ask your lender, go ask your agent, get their take on what you're hearing. But don't let it dissuade you right off the bat from doing what you feel like you should be doing. Okay. Then this is a biggie. Some people always try to figure out the appropriate time to buy a house for themselves. I've been guilty of that in the past as well. Maybe some of you have. You can hit that thumbs up button if you know what I'm talking about. But if you have ever been guilty of saying something like the timing isn't right, or I want to wait for the rates to come down, or anything like that, no problem. It's acceptable. We've done it, but no more, right? That is never going to happen again. Why? Because most of those comments are actually, funny enough, the results from advice from friends or family, or even worse, the media, who pretend to be real estate experts. But again, now that you know that we're not going to listen to that stuff, we are not going to let other factors dictate what is good for us in our own lives. So we have to erase that from our vocabulary, because the truth is you cannot time the market. End of story. It's okay to try and fail, to try to buy a house and it doesn't work out, but you're never going to time the market. So I always tell people the best time for you to buy a home is right now, if you're ready. And if you're not ready, the best time for you to buy a home is as soon as you're ready. Forget the market, forget your friends and family, forget anything else. If you are ready to buy a home and you have the money to buy a home, go start looking for a home. That's it. That's all that matters. Because the truth is that the prices are only ever going to go up and the rents are only ever going to go up. So the sooner you get in the house, the sooner you lock in your mortgage rate, that is your fixed rate of rent for the next 30 years. And the likelihood is it's only ever going to stay the same or go down. We cannot know what's going to happen in the future. And timing the market is simply trying to predict the future. We don't know where interest rates are going to go, or who is going to be president, or what's going to happen to inventory or pricing, although we do know pricing does tend to go up. So the point is that over any given period of time, housing prices go up, and the best thing that you can do for yourself is what's best for yourself. So if now is the right time for you to buy and you can afford the monthly payment on the house, forget about even what the purchase price is, we'll talk about that in a second, then now is the right time for you to buy a house. So, and I want to say something else. If you can't necessarily afford the house you really want, right? The cost is too prohibitive, or you're not seeing anything that will work for you for the, forever homes, the long terms. You can always try and compromise for a springboard situation, which is where you buy something that fits your needs right now. You're building equity, you're building net worth, you're owning your home, and then in a few years, when the time is right, you sell that and you use the equity that you've gained in order to springboard into a better, bigger property. I have on my Instagram, the Realtor Evan. You can go and find an illustrative version of this from like a year or two ago. It's amazing how much money you will make and how you can springboard it. So if you can find something that works now, that's also just as good if you can't find the forever home. But again, if on the other hand, you're really not ready, you don't have the money, you truly can't find anything once you've started searching, then maybe now is not the right time for you. But at least you've tried. At least you have, made it to the point where you've been told no, right? And you won't have any regrets, because any of you or anybody who saw what was going on in 2020 and 2021, where the market was going crazy and the interest rates were down to 2%, and you said, I'm not doing this, it's too crazy, everybody's nuts. Well, a lot of people are now kicking themselves because the interest rates are at 7% now, and they will probably never get back down as low as 2 or 3 or maybe even 4% ever again. So probably we're hoping for 6s soon, maybe 5s. But that's the point here, is that we got to do what's best for us, and we can't let anything else get in the way of that. And the truth is that the purchase price may not be, this might be a controversial point, but it's just a number. Why is it just a number? Because if you're borrowing most of the money from the bank, then it truly comes down to just the monthly payment. You're not putting out all this money. So it is very possible that with interest rates and HOA fees and whatever it might be, that somebody with a higher purchase price could have a lower monthly payment than their next door neighbor who had a lower purchase price but a higher monthly payment. So forget the purchase price. You will back into the purchase price after speaking to your lender. You'll talk about what your affordability is and how much money you think you can pay every single month for a home. And then you work on to, well, if you can afford that much, then this is your budget, right? We probably all get credit cards and we get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 spending limits. That doesn't mean we go out and spend $15,000 a month, right? We budget things. So you got to budget your monthly payment, and then we got to figure out what does that look like as far as a purchase price. And trust me when I tell you, I love this stuff, and the lenders I work with love this stuff, and we're nerds about it. So it's quite possible that we can squeeze you into a higher purchase price home and keep your monthly payment just the same. So forget the purchase price. It comes down to the monthly payment. And also, stop the hesitation, right? On offers, nobody has ever bought a home that they didn't put in an offer for first. So we've got to put in offers. If you like a home enough that you can see yourself living there, put the offer in. You've got contingencies within that offer that are going to protect you. You're not going to lose any money if you decide you changed your mind later, but at least you're trying. Don't tell yourself no, let them tell you no. Just the same way that we said, let the market tell you it's not the right time. But put in those offers. Go after the pre-approval. There's nothing holding you back from a pre-approval. There are some things that you have to put in some documentation. You've got to run a credit check, right? So some people are like, I don't want to do the credit score thing, and it's going to knock. The truth is that if you've applied for a credit card, it's knocked the same amount of points off of your credit score that doing a pre-approval would be. Okay, it's not that much. We don't think about it oftentimes when it comes to everything else in life. But when it comes to shopping for a home, all of a sudden we hesitate on getting that pre-approval because of a credit score. Now, let me say that credit can be a sensitive issue, and I'm sorry I'm going fast. I know I want to get through a lot of this, and we're probably going to run a little over, but I'm going to stay as long as I can to answer as many questions as possible. Credit may be a sensitive issue, so my expectation is that this kind of thing you might want to talk about with me or your lender one-on-one, and I'll give you the opportunity to do that after the call if you're open to talking about it in this group. But by all means, do not feel pressured to do that. Now, if you are concerned about your credit score, don't worry, you're not alone. But the real thing that to be concerned about credit is the hard pull. Now, hard pulls are necessary means to the end. You are not going to get a pre-approval without a hard pull. But if your credit score is good, you don't have anything to worry about. You can go to Credit Karma or CreditWise, which works with a lot of credit cards to get an idea of what your score is. And unless you're on the line, right, like 700-ish, right? If you think it's going to drop you to 698, then maybe you want to talk to your lender about where you think your score is at before they do the hard pull. And we can do a soft pull if absolutely necessary, so we can get a better idea. But they do need to do the hard pull because it gives them more than just the credit score. It tells them about your liabilities and what payments you have to make each month. So in order to get that pre-approval and really start shopping for that home, you got to bite the bullet on that one. But that's what Arash is great at. He will walk you through it. Tell him, the more you tell us throughout this whole thing, it's like we're your lawyers, and you're on a trial for murder. The more you tell us, the more we can help you. So keep that stuff in mind. And the second thing is make sure to check with your lender or with your agent before you make any credit payoffs to improve your credit score, because it may actually hurt you to pay off your credit, believe it or not. And certainly don't make any crazy new changes to your finances. Try to keep the job that you have. Don't buy a new car. Don't even take out a new credit card during this process, because if you do, it could affect your ability to buy a home. Now, I promised you that we are going to take this quick detour before we get to mistake number 5, which will be a breeze through, to discuss the 5 steps in buying a home in about 30 days. Excuse me. And this is going to also go through what those costs are involved in each of these phases. So, for example, step number 1, when we find the home and we submit the offer and the offer is accepted, then we have to submit an earnest money deposit. It's called the EMD, the good faith deposit. In LA, it is typically 3% of the purchase price, okay? Some other places, other counties, other states, it's going to be like 1%. Whatever it is, it's going to be 3% in LA as a standard. You might be able to get away with less, but expect it to be 3. This is your skin in the game. Now, they could be negotiated as to whether it's 3 or 1, but anything less than 3 is going to be seen as a weaker offer, and we do not go over 3. There are situations where we will, but it never, in general situations, want to go over 3% for earnest money. And the stronger it is, the more it is, the stronger the offer. Now, you have to send that in usually within the first 3 business days after getting your offer accepted. And you send it in typically by wire, and we want to watch out for wire fraud. So we have steps to avoid that, and the escrow officer will tell you how to. And so if you had a $500,000 house, 3% is going to be $15,000. And you send it in by wire, not ACH transfer, but by wire. And most banks will charge a small fee for this. Maybe it's $30 or $50. Whatever it is, that fee will be your first sunk cost. The $15,000 is safe and secure because you have your contingencies in your offer. Make sure you have your inspection, your loan, and your appraisal contingencies in your offer. And so far, by day 3, you have spent $15,050 for this $500,000 purchase. Now, the $15,000 is not lost yet. It's not spent yet. And if you do have a down payment to make, that money will go towards your down payment at the end. Now, step number 2, the lender starts to get to work right around the same time, and they're going to ask you to sign your initial disclosure, which goes over what the loan is going to look like for that particular property, and they're going to ask you to pay for your appraisal so they can get your appraisal report, which will usually cost you around $600 to $700. Now, keep in mind, the appraisal is your second sunk cost. So first is the $50 wire fee, and now it's the $700 appraisal fee. So far, your bank has gone down by $15,750, but only $750 of that you'll never see again. The other $15,000, if you back out of the offer because you changed your mind, you'll still get that $15,000 back, okay? And it's, again, just remember, throughout this process, do not go buy a bunch of furniture. Don't go buy a Range Rover. I've had that happen. You can buy a Range Rover the day after you close. No problem. You'll still get the house. You buy that Range Rover the day before you close, you lose the house. Done. Right? You probably also lost that $15,000. So don't go and do anything. Just wait until it's over before you change any of your financial spending patterns. Step number 3. At the same time that all of this work is going on in step number 1 and 2, you're going to be scheduling your inspection of the house, right? You're first of all going to be going through a lot of paperwork, which is your paperwork inspection, but you also have your physical inspection. Now, we need to make sure that the house is what we expected it to be when we put in the offer, but we can't see behind walls, under floors, or on the roof. So that's why we hire the inspector. Inspectors in LA generally about $400 to $600 for a general inspection, and you can count on this being one of your expenses. And so let's call it another $500. We are not going to worry about secondary inspections. Depending on what the general inspection says is what I tell my clients. Then if they say you might want to get a roof specialist or foundation specialist, That's when we call them in. And it may cost you more money to bring them in. Some of them do it for free in the hopes that they get the business if you have to fix something. Some of them charge money. Could be another $250 just for a roofer. So you've got to consider that. But for now, we're going to assume that it's $500 for your general inspection. And the pest inspection you probably want to do at the same time, but maybe we can get the seller to pay for that. So now we're up to $16,250 and your sunk cost is $1,250. The $15,000 still being refundable. Now we move on to step 4. And once you've done your inspections, this is when we discuss what your next steps and possible outcomes might be. So first of all, you can terminate the contract. You don't like what you see in the inspection. You don't like it's different than what you thought. You can terminate the contract right away. You lose that $1,250 for the inspection, appraisal, and the bank fee, but you get the $15,000 back and you move on to find the house that is right for you. Okay, that's one option. Alternatively, option number 2 is you can pick 2 or 3 of the most important items that you found to be wrong with the house and ask the sellers to fix those problems before we close escrow. Now, that's a possibility. We're not going to nickel and dime and say the doorknob's busted. We're probably going to look for those high ticket or expensive things that need to be fixed or health and safety items. We don't want to go crazy. The seller's not responsible to make sure that you are moving into the perfect conditions. They were happy living there the way it was, but you want to ask them to make sure that it is up to code, that it is safe to live there, that you're not going to walk into this house and have to spend $10,000 to fix something that they neglected this entire time that you need, right? Like the air conditioning. So we can pick 2 or 3 and have them fix it. Or option number 3 is if they don't want to fix it, you can negotiate a credit instead of them fixing it. So they say, we're not going to fix that for you, but instead, we're going to give you $10,000 as a credit at closing. What does that do? That gives you an extra $10,000 at closing, meaning you don't now have to come out of pocket to pay your $10,000 closing costs. The $10,000 is going to credit towards $10,000 of your closing costs. And so you keep $10,000 in your pocket to now fix the things that need fixing. Last option, continue with the deal as is. Maybe there's nothing wrong. Maybe it's all fine. We can live with this stuff and we like the house. And, even maybe we tried to negotiate with the seller. They're not budging. And so now our option is either terminate or go forward. So we can go forward. Now, once we move forward, we remove the inspection contingency. And so now that $15,000 is at risk, okay? So if you decide to cancel it after that inspection contingency is removed, then you could be in problem. You could have problems. Now, you do have an appraisal contingency. And by the way, if the appraisal falls short, you can do the same things here, right? You can terminate the contract if the appraisal is less. You can negotiate with the seller on a new purchase price, or maybe you can meet sort of halfway or 70-30 or something like that. Or you can just continue with the deal as is and throw in that extra money because you have to close the gap. If they said it was only worth $475,000, you might have to pay another $25,000. So you want to keep an eye on that. And once the appraisal is done, you would remove the appraisal contingency. So you have that contingency as well. And then you have your loan contingency, which protects you in case, God forbid, the loan gets denied during the escrow process. And so once all of those contingencies are removed, that earnest money becomes at risk. The expression is it goes hard, and it is now, if you cancel it, technically it is the seller's right to keep that money. Okay, so that's what we want to be careful of. But up until this point, you can get that $15,000 back if you cancel the project, cancel the contract. Just not that $1,250 for the inspection, the appraisal, and the bank wire fee, and any other inspections or other costs that you might have spent, okay? The $15,000 is yours. And then if you do move forward, that's it. You've got that house, right? So it's very simplified here. Obviously, there's a lot more to it, but that's what it takes to be a homeowner. After a little bit more waiting and a few more steps, after you've removed those contingencies, we're waiting for the lender to do their work. We go to closing, you sign your loan docs in front of a notary, you pay the rest of your down payment, you pay your closing costs, and you get your keys. We will discuss, the plan for the moving trucks and turning on the utilities and all of that stuff in the days leading up to closing, so you don't have delays and you can get into your house as soon as possible. And of course, in certain situations, there may be a lease back. The seller might stay there sometimes, but the house would be yours at that point, okay? So again, this is a lot of stuff. That is what I'm hoping all of you get to. And again, it's all taught in that school course. If you guys want to sign up for it, I go through all of that in a lot more detail than I just did now, and a lot slower too, I will say. And if you want to talk to me more about it, again, here is my link, therealtorevan.com/book. Again, just use this link, put it again in the chat, and you can have that there if you want to talk to me about your details. Now, mistake number 5, and stay with me on this because, again, I go into a little thing here, but buyers need to be protected. And that's my most important responsibility, my most important job for you. So I tried to make it a little fun here, and I want you to be protected by a gladiator, right? And so how do I do this? Like one by one, how do I become your gladiator? Well, first of all, I will say this. I will never, ever force any of my clients to get started. Like I said, that's entirely up to you when you are ready. And if you decide to start and it ends up that you don't find what you're looking for, it doesn't work out, it's a different story. But every buyer, I'm never going to force you, but you need to be in with both feet. It's never good to be doing that dance where you have one foot in and one foot out. You need to go in with both feet, and that's going to be, up to you, but you need to be ready, and I will make sure that you are ready. So even if you tell me you're ready, we're going to go through all that stuff and make sure that you are fully ready to go. And I want you to know the process of buying a house from start to finish. I'm not going to make you go through the school course, right? I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know and answer any questions that you may have. But I want you to be entirely ready because this is your house. Not once has any of my clients asked me to move in with them, right? So you're buying the house. It's your money. You need to be the one that's understanding everything. I might give you advice and give you suggestions, but you're going to be the one to be needing to make these decisions. And in order to make decisions, I want you to be properly informed. And again, that's why I also do have the DIY homebuyer course, which you can use along with working with an agent, myself or anybody else, because it's really how I prepare all of my clients. Now, the familia is what the gladiators group, this entourage, this team, right? And so to buy a home, you need a team too. You need a lender, you need an inspector, you probably need, other people like contractors or lawyers or CPAs. And as an agent, I would help all of my clients to make sure that they have all the people that they need in their network. Usually, if you tap into one, they can always help you tap into another, but that's what part of my responsibility is. And last but not least, your armor, it's your protection. And again, as your agent, that's where you're getting your direction from, right? That's the protection gets you fully prepared to be able to handle absolutely any situation that comes up in an escrow. For the most part, they're very straightforward, but very, there are times, and I would say 90% of the time, there's one or two little things that come out of the blue that it's like, okay, we got to work through this one. And you need that direction or that experience to help you. And so there are also two types of gladiators, right? There's, if you remember the original movie, not the recent one with Denzel, but I think I like the first one better with Russell Crowe. He was Maximo, right? He was the best gladiator of his time, and his he was the fighter, the swordsman, and who I am for every client I represent. And then on the other hand, you had Proximo, his master, right? And Proximo, before he got old, he was the best gladiator of his time, but now he was Maximo's sort of coach or his mentor. And that's the other type of gladiator, the one that can coach and teach you how to fight and show you what you need to be going towards victory. And so with all of my clients or through my school course, and the advanced one, I aim to make you a gladiator with me. So now we have two gladiators fighting this battle, right? As opposed to just you going by yourself or going at it alone or just having an agent, you know exactly what's going on and you're fighting these battles for you. Now, again, the basic school course free for life, but there is an advanced paid membership one. It's high ticket, but it is a fraction of the costs here. It's $1,000 currently. I'll probably start charging more than that. But when you consider what the cost for an agent is, it's a lot less expensive than that, right? And so if you wanted to do it by yourself because you are, a savvy buyer and you can do that stuff yourself and you're more confident in doing it that way, well, this can at least give you the direction. I know it will be enough to help coach you through it. And then we also have calls where I can help coach you through more specific things. But if any of you want to talk about that, you have my contact information, therealtorevan.com/book. We can talk about that, but certainly sign up for the free one because that'll give you an idea of what this course is all about. And the truth is that I am giving you all of these options because, again, I want you to be that gladiator. Because as a gladiator, we stand out, we do things differently, right? When someone says it's impossible, we don't believe them. And I want to empower you and elevate you to the level of a champion. I want you to be so prepared that you're going to be fully aware and there's no surprises coming up. That you're going to go out there and do everything in your power to better your chances for getting a great home. We're going to negotiate hard with some people and some of whom are difficult. We got to be ready for that. We're going to put as much info out of listing agents as possible to help us get what we want. And you are going to know how to analyze every listing that we look at to ensure we're making offers that fit within your budget. I'm going to help you with that. You're going to be able to do it on your own. We're all going to be in it together and going to be prepared. And is it going to work every single time? No. Just because we're gladiators doesn't mean we win every deal. Thankfully, we're not in the old Roman times because that would probably mean we're dead. But we're going to go on. And if we don't get the deals, we're not going to give up. We're going to keep trying, right? And that's how we continue to proceed throughout this whole process. So, excuse me. I know it's a little cheesy, this last section, but the reality is that it served a point, and I'm hopeful you saw past the cheesiness to get to that. Yes, I can go back a slide for Raymond. Is there something specific? Okay, you got it, buddy. Anyways, hopefully, I know we ran a little bit over, but let me ask you, are you feeling a little bit better than how you felt at the start of this webinar? Just a little bit less concerned, a little less stressed out, less intimidated or anxious or uncertain. Show of hands, thumbs up, anybody feeling a little bit better? Or, maybe not. Okay, fine. I try to make people see that even with just an hour's time, we can learn a lot. And by learning, we are less concerned. We are less stressed. We are less anxious and uncertain. And if we can do all of this in just a jam-packed hour, which is probably hard to digest because I was steamrolling through all of it to try to get through all of it in 60 minutes, then imagine how much more we can accomplish if we are, taking our time and doing it together. So what is the right order? I told you there was a sort of a wrong order at the beginning. What is the right order? Well, mistake number one, choose the gladiator to fight or represent you. Number two is to choose the lender and explore all financing options, including those DPAs or your, first-time homebuyer programs. Now, you don't have to do one or two, can be done either which way. I will say that. You can find the lender first and then find the agent. You can find the agent, then find the lender, or you can decide to go about it by yourself on your own, as long as you have the right coaching and direction. I wouldn't do it by yourself without that. And then find the lender, that's fine. Then you start going out there, you run estimates on monthly payments to establish a budget. You start focusing on what neighborhoods can fit that budget for you. You start visiting the homes and learning the current values of what those homes are in that neighborhood and what you would going to get for that amount. And if it's seeming right, we start making offers on the right properties. And so that is the order we want to proceed in. And again, free lifetime access to anybody who signs up for the basic course at school tonight, therealtorevan.com/course. Again, we'll post it here in the chat. And if there's, have any problems, you can always reach out to us. And if you do want to talk about the advanced thing, because you are savvy enough to go through it on your own, and I believe there's probably one or two of you out there that can do it, and you'd rather not go through an agent or have that bucket D and have to pay for an agent, I get all of that. So let's talk about that. And if you want to talk to me, that's great, because I'm here for you. So therealtorevan.com/book. If you make an appointment, I will be happy to answer any questions for you. And last but not least, as I did promise all of you for staying till the end, if you book a call with me tonight or you book a call with Arash tonight, and you work with Arash and you work with me, either as your agent or the advanced school course on your own, you sign up for the advanced school course or I'm your agent, any of those two options, you will get $1,000 credit at closing to go towards your closing costs. It's real money. It's going to be in your pocket. And it's just a thank you for staying tonight, because I know it's late and you probably have a lot of things to do, but I really appreciate you being here. And again, all you need to do is click on one of those two links. You can even click on webinars.therealtorevan.com/book. That works too. I'll fix that later, but therealtorevan.com/ sorry, not lender, Arash. Well, we're going to put it in the chat right now. The two links, either of those two links, and I apologize for the mistakes here. Either of those two links, book one of those calls, fill out one form or the other, and work with us. Let us help you get your house. We will work with you as a team to the end, and you'll get an extra $1,000 on top of whatever else we can get you throughout the process, off of your closing costs, off of your, monthly bills, everything. We're going to work to try to make the house as beautiful and as brilliant and best as possible for as little as possible. So that's that. I really, again, thank you all for staying, especially past the hour, and we will jump into Q&As. I don't think I saw many questions come up throughout the chat here, but if anybody wants to unmute, you are all welcome to unmute or raise your hands if you have a question, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have to help you with your home journey. Is there anything that I can answer? Happy to stay here. There's not a lot of people. I know some people have dropped off already. Anybody else still here? All right. Well, for those of you still here, if you do have a question in the next 10 seconds, happy to answer. Just raise your hand or unmute yourself. But otherwise, thank you all for coming. I do hope you get a great house. I do hope to be a part of your journey in one way or another. And I do hope to see you at least in the school course, because why not get free information? And thank you, Raymond. I really appreciate that. And that means a lot to me. So, and again, happy to teach you my shit as well. So if I can be of any help at all, I would be happy to. So yeah, I'll hang out for another couple minutes if anybody wants to ask a question or wait till everybody else drops off. But that's it. It's over. Thank you so much. And if you want to get back to your lives, by all means, you can leave. And this will be on a replay as well if you want to rewatch it, Raymond, or anybody else who does have wants to watch it again or go to any of those school courses. Again, the last two links are not correct on this slide, but it is therealtorevan.com/Arash or therealtorevan.com/book. And those are both in links there. The replay will be sent to you. Because you joined tonight, you will get an email with a replay link. So you will get that link as soon as it is loaded up onto the system and available. Okay. You're most welcome, Raymond. I appreciate you being here, buddy. Thank you. And thanks for being interactive as well. It's not always easy to stand here and talk to yourself for an hour and a half, but thank you for helping out. Appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. If you need anything else, you know where to reach me. And I do wish you guys all the best of luck. Thank you so much.